I'd like to call to order our regular meeting for the Rockingham County Board of Elections at 371 North Carolina 65 Rockingham County Governmental Center. We'd like to welcome our board members here today and welcome those of you who chose to visit with us and those of you who chose to view us from the comfort of your office or your home. This morning I've asked Diane Parnell to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and our person who's going to do our invocation is not here. And I think it's important during this time of the year for us to have an invocation. So I'm just thinking that he might be running late, and if you don't mind, I'd like to have him, when he comes in, to do an invocation for us. So will you please stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Diane. At this time, I would like for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. You have approved the agenda for today. And next on our agenda is the approval of board minutes. And as you notice, it's a lot of minutes here. But that showed how busy we were during the season of election. So October 15th, 2024, regular meeting minutes. October 15th, 2024, absentee meeting minutes. October 22nd, 2024, absentee meeting minutes. October 29th, 2024, absentee meeting minutes. November 4th, 2024, pre-election absentee meeting minutes. November 5th, 2024, election day absentee meeting minutes. November 12th, 2024, absentee provisional meeting minutes. November 14th, 2024, absentee provisional meeting minutes. November 15th, 2024, canvass meeting minutes. And November 21st, 2024, emergency meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I second.
All right, it has been motion and properly second that we approve the minutes as presented, starting with October 15th through November 21st. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. You have approved the minutes as listed. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comments, and there are none, so I'd like to close. There are no one here to speak to us from the public. Next on the agenda is listed a resolution, and board members, this is a resolution that I would like for us to study and see if we can move forward with it. All of the information that we need and some information that we don't need that we're trying to get our hands on or get to talk with someone about, so that we can decide if this would be something that we would like to do. The chair would like to appoint 2 people to work on this resolution and make sure that it's worded right if we decide to move forward with it. And the 2 people that I'd like to work on it would be Member Schofield and Member Hampton, if that's okay with you.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'd like for you and Member Hampton to work on this resolution. Now, this is not something that we're trying to do today. It's something that we would like to do within the next month or so. And it's information that we want to look at as far as our director is concerned, she has spent a lot of time, overtime. And we just want to look at some things and see what we can do to sort of help her out with that. Not that she has asked. It was presented to me, and I thought I would bring it to you and that you help make a decision on what we want to do and if we want to move forward. So if that's okay with the two of you?
I'll be glad to do that. I would like to have any input that the group may have today for us to consider, because I personally like it, the way it's written up.
Okay.
I agree with Tom.
Yeah, I have a couple, I will assist the chair any way I can. I have a couple of questions, though, about the intent of this. Is it to compensate for hours worked during this past election season?
Yes.
Okay. As I understand it, the director is not entitled to, according to county personnel records, the director is exempt and not entitled to overtime or compensatory time.
Okay. And we have,
Madam Chair, I also concur in the movement here to pass this resolution. This has been a most unusual election with all the issues that we've had along the way, plus the additional after the election that calls for a tremendous amount of workload on our director.
I agree.
okay,
And
go ahead.
Tom and I would probably like to meet with the director to get more concrete information about the hours she's worked and her staff. I mean, everybody, we saw them there, we know what they were doing. But if that's okay with the chair.
Yeah, it's okay to talk with the staff, but I think the staff, for one reason or the other, they get comp time.
They're entitled, they're not exempt. So,
Okay, so when we do our investigation, we have made contact with
yeah.
individuals, and we haven't had a chance to really talk. So
Yeah.
we're going to sort of leave that up to you and Tom to kind of hash that out and ask questions or come back to us, because the actual resolution goes through the year. So whatever you bring to us will be considered. Okay? All right, now, Paula is going to talk to us about the cost of the 2024 general election.
Okay. Included in the board's packet, if you'll go past the meeting section, you'll see the 2024 general election cost. It's broken down for early voting, election day, and also included in the election day is the legal fees, the recounts, anything, hand-to-eye counts that occurred during this election. This is an election that is still ongoing, so there may be other costs, but you will see that during the early voting time, Rockingham broke records as far as early voting turnout. We had 38,311 early votes. And the absentee ballots, we had 1,468 that were returned for a total of 39,779 votes during early voting. What's included in the early voting totals is the postage for mailing out all of the absentee ballots, the verification cards, any notification about anything that was during the time of early voting. We have the advertising for early voting, the ballot coding and layout. You'll notice that that is on there twice. The first time was for the first ballots that we had ordered, and then we have the second cost. Then we have the ballot printing for the first time and the second time, and the materials printing, that's anything like the provisional envelopes that had to be ordered, verification cards that we had to order, anything that a printing company had to do, that's the materials for printing. The precinct supplies is the supplies that was used during early voting, and the early voting pay is listed, the LNA testing, temp staff time, that is the temporary staff that we brought into the office during early voting. And then you have the staff comp time that was involved during early voting. The election technicians is we pay for maintenance for any overtime that they have. We don't pay for their regular time hours, but when they're picking up the ballots or ATVs after hours, that is the time we do pay them for. Fuel expense, we do have the use of a county vehicle, and then the Zoom links, we pay a monthly rate for the early voting meetings or the absentee board meetings, and the MiFi is what we use for the Reedsville early voting site. The other early voting sites are county-owned, so they have the Wi-Fi available, but if you use an outside county-owned building, we have to use a MiFi because it has to be a secure source of internet. So for the early voting cost, it was $158,447.11. The cost per ballot was $3.98. Is there any questions on that before I go to Election Day? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have we heard anything back from the letter that we sent regarding the additional cost for ballots?
I have not. All right. For Election Day, as it stands right now, is still included as our expenditure for early voting.
Now, would they have gotten back to us, or would they have gotten back to the commissioners?
It would have went back to the general fund, but I still would have been notified if it would have been paid.
Okay, so they would have responded to the commissioners.
Yes, they would have responded because the chair of the commissioners actually sent the letter.
Thank you.
All right, Election Day, that is the advertising for the Election Day this year. You have the ballot coding and layout for the first time because it's divided up amongst the two. And then the ballot coding and layout for the second time. The ballot printing for the first time for the ballots and the ballot printing for the second. You have the board pay, the precinct officials pay for Election Day, the temp staff, that was Election Day, and anything following that, trying to get everything ready for canvass. And then the election technicians overtime, that is maintenance. We did not have anyone that we paid overtime to this time in IT. Then you have the staff comp time for Kathy and Polly. We have the hand-to-eye count, and this was the original hand-to-eye count for the presidential contest, and that's the one that is required by state law. Then we had the machine recount for the North Carolina Supreme Court Seat 6, the hand-to-eye count for the North Carolina Supreme Court Seat 6, the postage that had to go out about the hearing notice for the North Carolina Supreme Court Seat 6. And then we did provide lunch for the recount of the North Carolina Supreme Court seats to all of the precinct officials that we had present. We had 16 that was doing that recount. video recording for the protest hearing, and that's an estimate. I don't know what the actual cost is going to be. I'll be getting that in the next month billing cycle. The legal fees, the Jefferson protest, I have received one invoice. I have not received the second one. So again, I'm estimating on that. The materials printing for Election Day, the precinct supplies, the fuel expense, again, that was with the county vehicle. And then the service and maintenance of all the equipment that was used. For Election Day, we had 9,845 votes. We had 160 provisional ballots that were approved by this board for a total of 10,005 votes. The total cost for Election Day was $78,188.51 for a cost per ballot of $7.82. The total overall of ballots cast for the 2024 general election was 49,784. The total cost was $236,635.62 for a cost per ballot of $4.75. Are there any questions?
A few minutes.
Madam Chair, it's obvious that the additional cost for the general election, Election Day, was because of all the extraneous things that happened with the appeals and the protests and so forth. I suppose that goes with the job, and we have to pay the bill.
We do.
That's it, in a nutshell.
How much did we budget for the election?
It
600, was it 600,000?
It's broken down
Yeah.
in here. It's in different categories. So for me to give you a total, I can't do that right now, but I can get you that, the total.
Now, this total that's on the back of this packet, this information you gave, that's broken down by category.
Yes, it is broken down by category. And I do have the budget that we can look at that each item was budgeted for, but I did not bring that with me today. And I apologize for that.
So we will wait, we will look forward to you giving us the answer to Member Hampton's question.
I will do that.
We budgeted, and if we overspent or,
Now,
Spent. I know
Sorry.
that.
on the last page of this breakdown,
Which one are you talking
where she breaks down the cost by, I think you got it
is
in
it
your
page
hand.
9?
Yes, page 9.
Page 9 of that, the last one.
Are you on that page, Paula?
On,
Where you break it down by category, the cost? Yeah,
Yes.
it's actually the activity. The last page?
yes, page 9.
Yes. Original budget, does that figure represent the original budget amount?
That's the original overall budget for the whole year.
Okay,
So the original budget was $602,077, but that was for the whole,
for the whole year.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal
Yes,
year,
ma'am.
right.
and we spent just on this election, $236,635.
So we are not over budget,
No, not for the year.
right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
But for the estimates on this election, we did go over budget.
You know by how much?
I do not, but I can get you that.
Okay.
I should have done that, and I did not.
Paula, we're going to be discussing the municipal election coming up this next year, and I see that's on the agenda. But it's my understanding that the municipalities pay for that.
They do, but it's still in our budget.
It's in our budget, but the money will flow back into the county for that. Going to be interesting to see how we end up.
Charge the cities and towns for the cost of the election.
But we have ongoing costs that aren't included in that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The staff pay and so forth are not
Yes, sir.
included in what we charge the county, the
That
cities.
is correct. We do charge if there's any overtime, but not regular working hours. That is correct.
Assuming they pay in a timely manner?
Yes, I can say that all the cities and the towns since I've been here have been less than 30 days. From the time that we send the invoice out and the time that I receive notification that it's been paid. They're very responsive.
Any other questions for our director? Comments? So we'll move on to item number 9, accomplishments, proficiencies, issues, challenges, and opportunities from the 2024 general election. And I think you have before you a printout that you might want to look at. And Paula, we'll start with you.
Like Chair Wright says, I did do a sheet on the accomplishments and the proficiencies. First of all, this election, from what I've been told by people who've been in this for over 20 years, says they've never encountered an election like this one before. But I think everybody says that about any election. But they said, even the directors that's been doing it for 20-plus years says 2020 was nothing compared to 2024. So the accomplishment for Rockingham to vote 38,311 voters during early voting without extreme wait times was a huge success that I consider, because I would, walking through the halls, ask, how long have you been waiting? I'm sorry you're having to wait. And most of the ones told me they had been there, maybe the longest was 30 to 40 minutes. And they said, but considering the lines, they were good. So, and most of the voters that I saw were all smiling, they were happy, they were joking, talking to one another. So it was a very positive, upbeat election. And, I'm very pleased with that. We had, outstanding support from our IT department, especially Peter Allen. Safety measures were put into place during this election with the assistance of Rodney Cates, with emergency management, and Jay Brooks Rodney is over the emergency services, and Jay Brooks with emergency management. On election day, we had law enforcement, fire departments, and all of them pretty much at our disposal. You could not have asked for better teamwork amongst the towns, the cities, the county, the Board of Elections. Everybody was in unison. There was support throughout the whole county. All we had to do was, we had a radio, and they were right there. And it was instant access. So, I mean, that meant a lot to our office to know that safety was key, and making sure that our precincts, the precinct officials, the candidates, the electioneers, the voters, the staff, everybody was safe. And it was a very good election as far as that. We received a lot of support from our maintenance this year with the delivery of the early voting equipment. You know, they worked during early voting, election day delivery, the election day pickup, but mostly election night when we were here till almost 2:30 in the morning. I had 2 maintenance staff that was there probably till about 1 o'clock. That meant a lot as well. So I wanted to thank them, and I mean, that's Eric, Josh, Matt, Robert, Billy, Jafarrell, Jeff, Jason, Brandon, all of them are phenomenal, and we would not have been able to do it without their assistance. The communication between the Board of Elections and GIS, Andy Treadway, he's been trying to help us on the geocoding with all the new subdivisions that are going up in the county. The communication between the Board of Election and the political parties, I would like to thank them for their assistance. And you could not have asked for any better communication than what we have. I hope they feel the same way. There was no major issues during early voting and election day. The parking lots were more voter-friendly, I think. There were no issues. We were concerned about issues with the gym being next door to the Board of Elections. We had no issues with that. It was received very well. There was a lot of respect between the two, and I appreciate that. We were tickled with our new early voting space. It was ready due to county management, the Board of Commissioners and maintenance staff making sure we had it up and ready for early voting with a very short time frame. We started the elections on time. We didn't have any delays. So as far as the accomplishments and proficiencies, I give it an A+ for this election, considering the stress and everything that was going on behind the scenes. You could not have asked for a better run election. So anything the board would like to add, or before I get to the other?
Is it your plan to send to the county workers, the folks that you've listed here, you know, a little thank you note recognizing what they contributed and how they helped to impact the election?
I think that's a great idea. So yes, we will do that.
Paula, this was a new election for most of us.
Yes.
A new experience for most of us. But looking at the numbers that you sent us between 2020 and 2024, I was shocked. We had 77.89% of our voters to turn out, which I think is good. But in 2020, it was 77.79, so just a very small difference.
That's correct.
We actually had more registered voters, about 2,000 more, but in looking through, what created the stress? What were some of the things? I'm not talking about just the election. I understand after the election, some of the protests and some of the other things. What were some of the things that created the stress that we all experienced, I think?
The very first day, the amount of voters, we were not expecting the numbers that turned out the very first day. And it was like that the first week. We're just trying to make sure that no one had to wait an extreme amount of time, and making sure that everyone had the ballots that they were needing, because we were running out of ballots and we were having to send more ballots, in the middle of the day, sometimes several times during the day, to make sure they would have the ballots. You can't predict. We send all the different ballot styles, but you don't know where the voters will go. So making sure they have enough, and they were coming in so quickly that the ones that was at the ballot station wasn't able to keep track of how quickly the ballots were going out.
So the volume of early voting in all 4 precincts
Yes.
was one of the major issues.
It wasn't an issue. It was good, but it was stressful too.
And we also had spoiled ballots.
We
We
did.
had some spoiled ballots, people not knowing what they were doing, marking the ballots, and having to
Yes.
go back. That made us run short.
Yes.
There was a major push to vote early, and I think that accounts for the
Yeah.
large number of early voting.
And don't get me wrong, that everybody, like I said, they were all very nice, very kind, but we just didn't want them waiting in line for long periods of time. So, okay. Well, some of the issues and challenges, that we did have a few individuals that failed during early voting. There was a disturbance at one voting precinct on Election Day.
Can we back up to that first bullet point?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on the falls?
We had one person that wasn't paying attention, stepped off the sidewalk, fell. We had another individual that had, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, a seizure and fell at one site. And then we had another one, I don't know what happened there, that failed. They fell on the curbing when they were, I don't know if they were coming in or leaving. So,
I don't think those falls could be attributed to things that we should have done that we didn't do.
oh, no, I mean, it was accidents, but still, we don't like any
Right,
type
right.
of incidents to happen. All 3 of the individuals were good. In fact, our chair followed up with 2 or 3 of them, and we, of course, our precinct officials, and I was getting information on them as well, and the 3 of them are good. So, all right, so moving to the third one, the parking lot at the Eden Library, law enforcement did have to be called in a couple of times to direct the traffic. The parking lot is very small. We did have people driving on the sidewalks. I don't know, I just heard this, but that we did have political signs that were being stolen from several locations. Staff worked a lot of overtime. The precinct officials were given provisional ballots to individuals that were registered, so that was an issue that we had. We had some geocode issues. We were not aware of some of the new subdivisions on county land. Large amounts of those houses, we didn't even know that there were houses there, and people had already moved in. So we're trying to figure out a better way for the Board of Elections to know about those new housing developments. With the cities and the towns, they usually send us that information as it happens. So I'm going to try to be more in tune with planning and the GIS department here so we can try to keep on top of that. But it's normally in the western part of the county that is building very rapidly. We didn't have a lot of time to research voters getting ready for canvass. Having to pay for a second order of ballots and the additional cost of staff to get those taken apart and preparing those again. Changing county emails right before early voting began was a little bit contentious because we had to learn a new email software. And the emails stopped being transferred before everything was finished. So we had a few issues with that, few angry emails. But like I said, this election was not like any other election, including the 2020 election, but we've learned a lot of things. So, and then opportunities, more laptops for training. We assigned a lot of our laptops out because of the numbers we were expecting. And so we originally had 12 laptops for training, and we ended up having, I think it was 5, because we were getting the laptops ready for the precinct sites. Better communication between the county, the state, the Board of Elections, making sure that emails and information are sent to appropriate person or persons. More in-depth training for precinct officials. We had more trainings this last time than we've had in the last couple of years, but with all the new election laws, it still wasn't get through, I should say, to some of the precinct officials, understanding, which IDs could be accepted, which could not, the expiration dates, what those requirements were. Better communication between the Board of Elections and county staff on new housing developments, I've mentioned that. And more trained office staff during a presidential election. So just, like I said, never been through a presidential election before. This was the first time for, I think, just about every one of my staff except for one. We had Kathy, who was here during the 2020 presidential election. But other than that, everybody else, this was their first time with a presidential election. So, and of course, we did have a lot of spoiled ballots during this election. And
that was because
it was various reasons. Some people were crossing out names instead of, and I don't know. It was just all over the board. We had some people that had a hard time circling in the ovals. And, that's where the express vote would help to get that in line. It was several. Some of them would mess up. They would think they would be circling an oval, what they thought, but when they would look at it again, they had circled the wrong individual. Some would circle the whole names and not circle the oval. So it was a lot of different things on the spoilage, but we had a tremendous amount of spoiled ballots.
But I would recommend the express vote to anyone because that's the route I'll take from now on.
A lot of people want it, and I understand with something new, it's a little scary. But the ones that did try the express vote, they're saying the same thing that Chair Wright did, that that is the way they will go from now on, especially those individuals that have, I mean, this ballot was 2 pages long, and it took a lot of time to circle those ovals. Where you have the express vote, you push the screen, and it colors, I mean, it does it for you. It doesn't color an oval, but it prints out the names of who you vote for.
What would be the best way to encourage more use of the express ballot?
Just more education, and we can do that. But it's still, when voters are used to doing the ballots or filling out the ballots the way they always have, you know, paper and pen, I don't blame them. I mean, that's what they're used to. Using something new, it's always a learning curve. And, you know, they just want to feel comfortable and know that their vote counts.
Is that option being presented to the voter
Yes,
when they come in to vote?
some just don't want it. They want to do it the way they've always done it. But we did, you know, after an individual would spoil, they get 3. We'd say, try the express vote. If you don't like it, then we'll get you one more ballot. But once they would try it, they'd say, oh, this is the way I'm going to do it from now on. So, because it's, with the express vote, it will read to you. You can enlarge the print. You can change the contrast on the screen. If you have a hard time with a white background, it changes it to a black background and white letters. So if someone has that issue where the brightness of the paper blinds them, they can't see the paper very well, that helps.
Do you have any idea how many people express voted?
I do not the percentage we would have liked it to have been, but very small percentage.
Madam Chair, question for the director. Actually, 2 questions. Knowing what we know now, what would we do differently? You said something about shortage of staff. What would we do differently today if we knew, if we could look back? What would you do?
Well, that's train them earlier on different things. Like I said, presidential elections are a totally different election from any other. It's not like the regular general election so there was no way to know what we would need. So on election day, we had 6 in the office, and that was not enough.
So we needed some more staffing. If we were preparing for 2028, we probably would need more people. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes.
What should we as a board do differently?
Well, you as the board would not have known either. Member Cole, did you come in during the middle?
Election day.
On election day, so he would not have even known what was going on during a presidential election.
My question was a little broader.
Okay.
What did we not do that we should do this time? Where did we make mistakes as a board, or what should we do differently?
Y'all didn't make any mistakes. Y'all were very supportive. You approved the budget that was presented to you. I mean, y'all were at the election sites during early voting. You were there during election day. Could not have asked for a better supportive board than what I and my staff have.
going to early voting and talking with some of the folks, I didn't see any real problems. I did learn that some of them consider their early voting as their home precinct. They didn't even know where they were supposed to go for the home precinct.
Yes.
They consider now early voting because we've been in this, I assume, the same locations for a lot of times. That is their voting place, and
There are some people that they do it because they're always nervous that they won't be able to make it on election day. That's the comment I heard. I vote during early voting because I feel good. If I wake up, I feel good, I go ahead and get it over with because I'm always nervous about whether I'm going to feel good on election day. So, and I will tell y'all, we did have a young lady, spry, 108 years old, that showed up to early vote, and you would not have known she was 108 years old. And she came inside. She did not do curbside. So
Fantastic.
that is amazing to me.
So this is a lot of information that you've shared with us, and you do plan to talk with the poll workers and staff concerning all that you've shared with us. And I'm sure most of the time when you get a chance to talk with them, they'll give you some information that you may not have thought of, or some things that will help make things easier the next time. So we do appreciate the fact that you put this down on paper and giving us the opportunity to ask questions and make comments. Any other comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized for some comments and also a suggestion. I go back to, as I'm sitting here listening to you talk about the various agencies within government that came together to make it a very successful election, and having been on the board at the time, appointed the day of the 2020, difference between daylight and dawn. The issue that I suggest we do is, these agencies, this is not their normal operation. This was an additional operation. They did a fantastic job, and I was searching for a word that we might use in a communication to send to each one of those organizations, and I remembered my last job I had with a major automobile manufacturer, and there was a word we always used on personnel evaluation, and it had various words, but the last word and the most important word, outstanding. Mm-hmm. And you see that, outstanding. I think what we have here has been an outstanding performance. No question about it in my mind. And I think that if we communicate that to all the people, all the agencies that were involved, they would appreciate that. And I would suggest that we do that we send a communication to every one of them, regardless of who they are, making that statement, outstanding.
And I did thank them through email, but not in that way, but I did thank them because it was a true teamwork effort. I mean, I've never seen anything that worked like that.
I think it was fantastic, no question about it. But I recall that word that we used on performance evaluations for employees, and very few people made outstanding along the way. But I think that would wrap it all up for us. But had you been here in 2020, you would have fully understood. You were here, right? You remember. But that, along with, I think that we have seen the board working in a united way as we move through this election to contribute what part we could contribute without any consternations and frustrations and stuff like that. But I can't be complimentary enough of the staff of the county management to do what we did. And, we never felt any of the anticipation that we expected with regards to running the election. So I think it's been great. I'll make one more comment and I'll shut up because you don't want to listen to me anymore. As we talk about express voting, what is the cost difference between the express machine and the machines we use for paper ballots?
There's no difference.
Well, you need to start planning to buy those, I would think, because as people continue to use them, it will increase their use. And it sounds great to me. I didn't do it, but I'll do it next time.
Well, they're expensive. They're just like the regular machines, and the cost per ballot's the same. So it's not a cheaper avenue, but it is a more efficient avenue.
Good.
So we, the board, would like to thank you, Paula, as director, and your staff publicly on how well you worked together during the election and the hard work that you did, and especially the times when you were here late at night when you shouldn't have been, and on the weekend. And I don't know if any of you knew, but she worked on weekends as well. So we do take our hat off to you, and we appreciate all that you did to make our election be more successful.
Well, thank you.
All right. So what's next on the agenda? All right, as we move forward, we're looking now at, on the agenda, item number 10, our fiscal year 2024-25 budget update.
At your seats today, I placed the latest account activity for each of our line items. And as you go through it, you will see some of the line items we have already expended completely. One example is our temp budget. We're actually over budget by $127. But we needed them for the time that was necessary. And, you'll see some line items we're still going through, we have not spent the money for, but advertising, we do still have money in there, but that was for educational purposes, and we'll be working on that. We do not have an election this coming spring, so the educational piece is something we will be working on to try to get more information out to the voters prior to the municipal election. Let's see. We do have a little bit of money left in election staff. So if I have to bring in staff, that is the line item we'll be using. Because with the temp staff, it was borderline precinct, or not, but election staffing and temp staffing, it goes hand in hand, but which line item to put it in varies. And then we do still have training dollars that are still available. But I wanted you to have the most current original budget versus what has been spent and then what is still available, so that if you have any questions you needed to ask me about, you can do that. But I know you just got this today because I printed it right before 5 o'clock yesterday, so it would be as most up to date as possible.
Next time, could you make this print just a little bit smaller?
I wish I could make it bigger. This is the only print I have. So I can put it on the big paper. But you want it smaller? I know
no.
that was being, I know what you meant.
You know that was
is.
a joke, right?
Yeah, I do. I can try to enlarge it, but this is how it prints.
I just need new glasses.
He's going to get some new glasses, he told me earlier.
Anytime you go get your eyes checked.
Yep.
Okay. You know you have to do
Small
that.
print. I mean, I think this is smaller than the 8 font. So it is very small. But if you have any questions or anything as you go through this, just call me. I'll try to answer it, or email me, whichever works best for you, and we'll try to get that. I think we're okay. But then when we go through some more information, we may or may not. But it depends.
Okay. So as we move right along, director's updates for the 2024 general election update.
Okay, the 2024 general election was one for the record books. So Rockingham County had record-breaking daily turnouts during early voting. There were 38,311 ballots cast during early voting at the 4 early voting sites. There were 9,845 ballots cast on Election Day. 2,285 absentee ballots were mailed out, and 1,468 absentee ballots were received. 523 provisional ballots were cast. 160 of those were approved by the board. For the 2024 general election, there were 49,784 voters that voted out of 63,912 registered voters, for a total of 77.89% turnout. During the 2020 general election, 47,937 voters voted out of 61,624 registered voters, for a total of 77.79%, which Member Schoolfield had already shared with you. But I wanted you to see those numbers. It was a little over 2,000 more registered voters during the 2024 election, and we still had over 77% turnout. So they wanted their voices to be heard. So, but are there any comments on that? Okay. The next item is the North Carolina Supreme Court Seat 6 protest update. This board had a hearing for the Honorable Jefferson Griffin protest on Monday, December the 2nd, for the first 3 protests. The 4th protest was heard by the State Board of Elections on Wednesday, December the 11th. The State Board dismissed the 4th protest for all counties. However, an appeal is possible. The first 3 protests that the counties ruled on may be held by the State Board of Election as early as this Friday, December the 20th. It is my understanding that if an appeal does take place, that it will go before the Supreme Court. There's always a possibility that the Supreme Court could rule to hold another election. And I wanted to give you that information just in case it does rule that way. I'm not saying it will happen, but there is a possibility. This election or this contest is around 734 voters throughout the state difference, which when you think of 734 voters, you go, well, that's a lot of voters. It is not, considering the population in North Carolina. So we don't know. Today was the first day I have not received an article about this election since the election began. I signed up for Election Online, and every day has been something about this election. But today was the only day that no newspaper had anything this morning, which I was surprised. So it's still in process. The election is still not over. Yes, canvass has been completed, but canvass can be, I guess it's not really reversed, but during certain contests, until it's final, it's not over. So are there any questions on that? Okay. The next thing is Senate Bill 382. Senate Bill 382 passed the House on Wednesday, December the 11th, and it is now law. It is Session Law 2024-57. This new law changes who the State Board of Elections reports to, which is now the state auditor. The state auditor will now appoint the State Board of Elections members as well as the chair of the county boards of elections. The county boards of elections will remain at 5 members. There will be changes as to how absentee ballots and provisional ballots will be handled, and this new law is 132 pages long. The pages that affect elections can be found on pages 29 through 41, and you should have those included in your packet. But I wanted you to be aware of all of that and see if there were any questions from the board. Okay. So the next thing is the 2025 municipal election estimates. I am working on that now. The only issue that I have is the next item, but I'm having to do estimates for the 6 cities and towns because they are responsible for paying for the municipal election. We have been notified by one of our precincts in Eden, and that's going on to the redistricting and precinct sites. Leaksville Christian Church, which is Leaksville 2's precinct, we will no longer be able to use the church. I was notified during the primary election that we would no longer be able to hold our elections there. They did allow us to use it this year, but I do not think that church was in operation, but they allowed us and committed to us this election year, which is 2024. I have informed the City of Eden about that. They will be discussing it tonight or this afternoon during their board meeting. I have also notified the State Board of Elections. I am still waiting on Neil Baddour to get back to me. He's the one that helps the counties with the redistricting whenever a precinct says they are no longer available. So I'm still talking with that. The city manager has told me that he would try to get back with me tomorrow on what the city of Eden discussed at their meeting tonight. But what we need to make a decision on as a board and then supply it to the state board is how to move forward. We have two options. One option is to merge the precinct with another adjacent precinct, or two, to find a new location within that precinct area. So what I would like to do is ask the board to hold a separate meeting to talk more about the Leaksville precinct, but I've also looked at the registered voters in each of the precincts and where we stand in all of them. So not only will we be looking at the Leaksville 2 precinct, but all 15 of our precincts overall to see how the board feels about leaving them as they are, possibly moving precinct lines, or whatever. Now is the time, because we do not have an election in the spring. Redistricting or moving precinct line takes months of research and preparation and approval. So it's not something that can usually be done during a general election year or an even year because of the work that is involved in that. So I just want to get that on your radar so we can try to schedule something, hopefully sooner than later, and just seeing what we need to do about, first and foremost, is the Leaksville 2 precinct. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments concerning the redistricting or the precinct sites? You will, I know you said sooner than later, you will sort of keep that in your mind so that when we need to call another meeting, and by that time you will have done more research and your maps will be where they need to be, and we'll have shared them as well.
I would like to receive the information from the state board.
Okay.
That's the main key right now, is how to proceed and what needs to be done. But I do have the maps ready, and I can provide y'all with those so that you can be looking at them.
Any questions, comments? So our person who was supposed to come and do our invocation was not here, did not get here for some reason or the other, but I would not like for us to go during the Christmas season without having a moment of prayer, a moment of silence for those individuals in Madison, what was it?
Wisconsin.
Who were shot yesterday in one of our schools, and we certainly want to keep our schools in mind and the families of those that were lost on yesterday. So I'm a person that likes the reverence of prayer, and that's why I keep you standing. So if you don't mind, would you please stand, and I will give our prayer. Almighty God, we thank you for being in our presence today. We praise you, God, for allowing us to get here today without incident. We thank you for allowing us to carry out the business of the Board of Elections. We praise you, God, for our director and all that she and our staff has done. We thank you, God, for those who are present listening to us this morning, and those who are in our presence this morning. We praise you, God, for all that you have done and all that you will do. We appreciate you, we magnify you, and we lift you up for allowing us to stand today to take care of the business and make sure that everyone gets a chance to vote. Although we don't hold hands at this point, but we ask God that you bless the person who stands to my right, to their right, to their left. And we thank you for all that you have done, and we ask God that you continue to hold us in the palm of your hand as we move forward with the end of the year. Once again, we thank you, we praise you, we magnify you, because it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And you may be seated, and we will call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
All right, it has been motioned and second that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. You have adjourned at 11:14.